All right, ladies and gentlemen, libertarians, libertarianism. What does it mean to be a libertarian? Well, nobody better to ask than David Boaz. He's Executive Vice President of the Cato Institute and editor of the Libertarian Reader. And his book, put it up on the screen for you, The Libertarian Mind, a Manifesto for Freedom. And David, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. All right, so would you call Rand Paul, so people could try to identify right off the bat and get away from the notion that some people have that libertarians are all about getting rid of the drug laws? Would Rand Paul fit your definition as a libertarian?
Yeah, I think broadly so. He doesn't call himself a libertarian. He says he's libertarian-ish or he's libertarian-leaning. But I think the fact that he's for smaller government and lower taxes and less spending and more skepticism about foreign wars and reining in the surveillance state and the NSA, I think all of that makes him, broadly speaking, a libertarian, yeah.
All right, so in the Libertarian Mind, you call it a manifesto for freedom. How would things differ? I mean, let me ask you first off the bat, because I hate to do this, I hate to feed into the stereotype, but are you for eliminating laws against illegal drugs, or eliminating the quote-unquote war on drugs?
I cover a whole lot of issues in the book, and yes, that's one of them. I do believe that adults should be able to make the important decisions about their lives, and that includes whether to drink coffee and tea, whether to drink alcohol, whether to smoke marijuana.
What about cocaine and heroin and amphetamines and meth and every other thing out
I would
there?
let adults make those decisions.
All right, but then they get, David, they get in cars.
That's done by the drug war in our cities.
Yeah. But David, then they get in cars.
Well, we don't let people drink and get in cars either.
But they do,
Sometimes
and we have 25. But
and
they
then
do
we
it.
have laws against
yeah,
that.
but it doesn't stop the 25,000 deaths. Usually, innocent victims are not the people who are drinking. And also, it makes it more available to kids. We know that kids have alcohol at parties. Kids have alcohol, free access to it, in unfortunately a lot of circumstances. And I don't want to get bogged down on this, but that's just one thing I strongly disagree with.
Actually, I think that you should poll your interns. Because when I ask my interns, they tell me that marijuana is often more available on campus than alcohol is.
Which is a bad thing also. Marijuana has a very...
Precisely the fact that it's not being sold in regulated stores makes it more available.
Well, I don't buy that, but anyway, let's move on. In what other way? I mean, what do you consider? Obviously, I don't think you consider the war on drugs to be the main issue.
Libertarians believe in personal and economic freedom. So how would the world be different? Taxes would be lower, government spending would be lower, regulation would be lower, we'd be less likely to get involved in unnecessary foreign wars. We'd give people more personal freedom to decide how to school their children, how to save for retirement, what to smoke, what to read, who to marry. All those things, libertarians would want to leave the decisions in the hands of adult individuals to be able to make their own decisions about their own lives.
But doesn't society have to have, and hasn't it always had, a Judeo-Christian ethic of which our laws are based on in this country? And doesn't that include, when it comes to illegal drugs that are mind-altering, it could put innocents in danger? And by the way, when these people do these drugs and overdose and wind up in the hospital, we all pay for them. But that aside, what about you say the right to marry whoever they want? What about 3 or 4 people getting married? Is that also okay?
Look, the philosophy of liberty is not about drugs, but we had drugs, illegal drugs that are illegal today were legal in the United States in the 19th century, and we weren't all falling over each other. And alcohol we tried outlawing because it is a dangerous drug, and we found out that there are dangers to using alcohol, but there are additional dangers to prohibiting it, and that's why we decided, well, we're going to try to manage alcohol, we're not going to try to outlaw it. So that's why I say, let people be free to make their own decisions. And some of us will make bad decisions. In fact, most of us will make bad decisions some of the time. But if we pay the consequences ourselves, then whether or not we have a minimum wage law, whether or not we have a marijuana law, all of those things ought to be left in the hands of adult individuals.
I think, David, and I urge everyone to read The Libertarian Mind by David Boaz, but I think you lose a lot of people with the drug issue. I'm for individual liberties and freedoms to an extent, but not not total and not decadence. And I think the right to marry whoever you want, which would mean 4 or 5 people, and the right to do the drugs you want, I think scares a lot of people. But David, thanks for coming on.
Of course.
I'm out of time, David. Michael Rubin's next. Don't go away.